Welcome back to The Big Picture. We are talking to political analyst Vic Martucci, and we were just about to get to something that's on everybody's mind regarding the election, and that is this question of voting by mail. What is the significance of it, how it is going to affect the election, how different is it this time from past voting times?
Yeah, so 4 years ago, roughly 52 million people voted by mail-in ballot. And mail-in ballot includes traditional absentee ballots, but in this COVID environment, many states have allowed voters to request a mail-in ballot because they don't feel comfortable going to the voting booth and voting. And that has resulted in expanding the pool of mail-in ballots to about 81 million ballots. In my opinion, the strategic mistake that the president's campaign has made is that he's cast doubt on the efficacy of mail-in ballots. He's telling his base that your vote won't be counted or that it's a fraudulent voting process, and I think that's a huge mistake. Look, I understand where he's coming from. The more people that handle a ballot, common sense tells you the more opportunity there is for mischief. That's common sense. But having said that, election law in this country are state laws. They're not federal laws. The states had established those laws back in June and July. These are the rules of the election this year. So maximize the rules to your advantage. He hasn't done that. In fact, I saw a report last night in North Carolina, some of the recent polling data there, which again is a swing state. The president needs to hold North Carolina. Over 60% of Republican voters are saying they will not vote by mail-in ballot because they don't trust that their vote will be counted or that there's fraud. And the danger in that is if they don't get to the polls, Democrats are voting by mail-in ballot. That could change the outcome dramatically, particularly in battleground states.
Right, right. You mentioned before about minorities and the importance of, to Biden and minorities. Let's talk a little bit, I guess, about the vice president choices, because that definitely has an effect, should have an effect, and that's the plan for Kamala Harris to have an effect, I assume, on the voters that come out.
Yeah, history shows that a vice presidential candidate typically doesn't help the ticket, but the wrong candidate can hurt the ticket. Nothing that Kamala Harris has done, in my opinion, to this point hurts the Biden ticket, the Biden-Harris ticket. Just as nothing Vice President Pence is doing or had done in 2016 hurt the Trump ticket. There's an argument to be made that Governor Palin hurt the John McCain ticket in 2008. I think that's overblown. The influence and the impact of the vice presidential candidate, but time will tell.
Well, I think now, I'm sorry, but I think now because of their age.
Exactly, and that's where I was going to go with it.
Yeah.
If voters discern that, and they look at the age of the candidates, particularly Joe Biden, I mean, let's be honest, if Joe Biden gets elected president, he will be older on January 19th when he's sworn into office than Ronald Reagan was the day he left office. And so that raises the specter of whether or not he will fulfill his term, fair or unfair.
Right.
And so that you would think would place greater scrutiny on Kamala Harris. There's nothing in the political environment that I've seen, either in polling or in the discourse of the campaign, that suggests that people are even thinking about that. The president has not made it a focus of his campaign, so I'm not sure that that's going to be an issue.
But it's come up now and then. But
right.
As you said, I don't think he can make it a focus because he's not that much younger himself.
That's right. That's right.
So let's not talk about age during this to begin with. So
we can agree on that.
Let's forget that. Well, the election, what's going to happen on Election Day? In olden times, Vic, we knew who, by 12 o'clock at night,
Right.
you knew who the candidate was going to win,
Right.
was going to be, not just presidential, but every election.
Correct.
Now, what's going to happen? I mean,
Well,
they talk about it could be contested for weeks.
Yeah, and here's what's important to know. 81 million people have requested a mail-in ballot. 4 years ago, 137 million people voted. So think about that.
Oh, wow.
81 million requested mail-in ballots. 137 million voted 4 years ago. So I really don't see how we're going to know the outcome of the election on election night. And then to further that, both campaigns are lawyering up, particularly in the key battleground states. And so each side is going to challenge every ballot for the other candidate, because there are requirements, for example, signing the proper affidavit, and making sure that the ballot's in the right envelope, and there were cases, even particularly in New York, where thousands of ballots weren't counted because of technical errors by the voter. They failed to sign the affidavit, whatever it might be. So both sides are lawyered up, and both sides are going to contest the votes of the other. I think it's unhealthy for our democracy. Because both campaigns have communicated to their base that if they lose, that somehow there was something nefarious on the other side, that maybe there was some fraud involved. And if we ever get to the point in this country where the public doesn't accept the outcome of an election, the difference between our country and a banana republic begins to narrow significantly. And at some point, we've got to move away from this discourse, this environment, where candidates are more and more unwilling to accept the outcome of an election.
What I think one of the issues is, if there's a disparity between the Electoral College and the popular vote, that always causes, diversity,
Sure.
discussion, trouble.
Sure. Well, in part, that's a failure of our education system, right? I mean, we have a large number of people in this country that don't understand why we have the Electoral College in the first place. Mm-hmm. We are not a monolithic country. We are a republic of 50 states. The founding fathers, in their wisdom, designed our system of government specifically to be a republic of 50 states. And why is that? Because there are geographic differences and demographic differences in different parts of the country. And so what the Electoral College does is it protects the minority against the tyranny of the majority. The vast, large numbers of population in this country are in 5 or 6 big cities. And our country is much more diverse than the population in those 5 or 6 big cities. The Electoral College smoothens that out. It makes it more fair, and it protects the interests of agricultural states, of manufacturing states, of high-tech states. 50 states, they're all different. The Electoral College is designed to protect the interests of those states. I don't think very many people understand that.
We used to learn that in school.
We used to learn that, yes.
But they probably don't teach it anymore.
Yes.
People were wondering that there was no discussion during the debate at all about the Supreme Court nominee, and for a while that was such a hot topic.
Sure.
And I don't know if it would have any effect or not, do you think, on the election?
Yeah, I don't think so. In fact, what's interesting is, if you look at the polls, when Justice Ginsburg passed away, a small minority of people did not want the president to appoint a replacement. As we're sitting here today, nearly 60% of Americans think that the Senate should confirm Judge Barrett. So over the course of that 4 or 5 weeks since Justice Ginsburg passed, the American public's perception of that has changed. So what the Democrats have tried to do, and I think smartly from a strategic standpoint, is they're not focusing anymore on the process. They're focusing on what it would mean if the court goes to a 6-3 conservative majority, and they've tried to tie it directly to hot-button issues with their base, health care and abortion.
Right. So that's probably why they didn't bring it up during,
I would
during
think so.
the debate. We have to just take a few minutes while we have it to talk about our famous local, our most notorious, famous public is most interested in race of New York 27. Not just locally, but it seems like there's national interest as well.
Right.
Too, in that race.
So I think my expectation is that New York 27 is still the most pro-Trump congressional district in New York State and remains one of the most pro-Trump congressional districts in the country. So the impact of a presidential election doesn't necessarily hurt the Republican candidate, Congressman Jacobs. I think it may actually help him. But what's going to level the playing field for Nate McMurray is, in my opinion, the mail-in voting. It will most likely increase the Democrat turnout to levels that you typically don't see in that race. And we saw that happen in the special back in June. But my expectation is that Chris Jacobs wins that race. The proof is in the pudding. There's very little national Democrat money coming into the race for Nate McMurray. 2 years ago, there was a lot of national Democrat money. There was a lot of national Democrat money in the special. So that tells me that it's low on their priority list because of what the polls are telling them.
No matter what happens, remember to get out and vote. We will continue the discussion on Vote 2020 here on The Big Picture. We thank political analyst Vic Martucci for joining us. I'm Penny Wolfgang. Thanks for watching The Big Picture, and thanks for watching WBBZ-TV.